So tonight, we're going to talk about Purim. Purim's a good one. All right, this is going to be like quasi-participatory. Would that be okay with you? You didn't respond. Would that be okay with you? Yeah. Good answer. Thank you. All right. So when you think about Purim, think in your own brain for a moment, what are some of the first things that you think about when you think about the holiday of Purim? I said think in your brain, but you're Jews, and you talk about you also are external processors. If it's in your brain, it's not in your mouth. Good. So we think about Hamantashen. What? Not Hanukkah. We'll get there later, kiddo. All right, good. Right. We think about Hamantashen. We think about booing the bad guy. We think about costumes, about kings and queens and villains. What? Braggers, right? We think about cookies and parties and celebrations, and we should. It's a good holiday for those things. And at times, this holiday in particular, we can resign to a pediatric vision of Judaism. That's good. We should have holidays that the kids enjoy and they get to celebrate and dance and play and sing. Oh, that's so nice for the kids. They should do that. And we'll wear a costume too if we have to. But when we investigate Purim, we see what it's there for and what it's asking of us, what it's inviting us into. Yes, it's absolutely a good and joyful moment for the kids, but as adults, we shouldn't ignore this holiday. We shouldn't skip over and be we'll do that one for the kids and I'll get to my spiritual stuff later. I want to investigate it through the 4 mitzvot, the 4 obligations of Purim. They're helpful for my brain because they all start with a mem, which is useful or not useful to you, depending on how comfortable you are in Hebrew, but we'll get there together, don't worry. So, the first one is, I'm going to do them out of order. Is that okay if I do them out of order? Yes. Thank you. The first one is mishteh. We're supposed to have a party, we'll say. And if we like wine, maybe 1 extra glass that night. Lots of mitzvot, Henry. Lots of mitzvot. That there's something about this holiday that insists that we celebrate. Purim suggests to us that joy and celebration are not extra to what it means to be a Jew. That it's sacred, it's holy, it is a foundational, fundamental spiritual experience to have joy. And not just flighty, happy joy, but deep-seated joy. That to be a person of faith doesn't just mean come on Yom Kippur and woe is me. I think that's what we often think being a religious person means. It means the heavy stuff. Oh, I can sit in my deep, hard, difficult thoughts. Purim demands that we celebrate. And not just that the kids celebrate, but that we celebrate. That we find time for sacred joy. And this holiday, like all the rest of them, aren't just for this moment. Yom Kippur isn't the one day that you say you're sorry. It isn't the one day for self-reflection. It's supposed to set us on a course for that over the course of the year. Sukkot isn't 7 days, 8 days of gratitude. It's supposed to guide us into a year of recognizing our abundance and appreciating it. We don't just recognize freedom and redemption and our obligation to remember that once we were slaves and now we are free, and it's our obligation to welcome the stranger. That's not just for Passover. That's all year. Purim isn't just for tomorrow night and Sunday. Purim's for the year. It's to tell us that the mishteh, that the joy, that the celebration has to be part of what it means to be a Jew and a person of faith. That's number one. Excuse me. Number two, Megillah. Another M, Megillah. We have to tell this story. It's a really, really good story. And it's got kings and queens and bad guys. There's a horse. Everyone likes a story with a horse. There's poetic justice. There's some violence. It's probably not a G-rated story when we really read it. It's more like a PG-13 R-rated story. But inside this story are questions that are worthy of us asking and reflecting on each time we get to it in the year. It's a story that asks us about identity. Esther hides her Judaism until she has to reveal it. The holiday asks us, what's it like to be a Jew in majority society this year? Are we confident? Are we proud? Do we feel like we have to hide it sometimes? When are the moments when we have to declare it in the public square? It's a holiday that asks us to confront evil, real and true evil, evil that seeks to exterminate a people. What do we do with evil and hate? How do we respond? What are our responsibilities and obligations? And what's the line? What's far enough and what's too far? What if we don't do it will lead to destruction and hardship for our people? It's a holiday that asks us to confront hatred and evil and wonder what we have to do in response. It doesn't presume an answer, but it forces us to confront some ugly truths of what it is like to live in the real world and the kind of people that we want to be. What will be by our side when we ask the big questions of who we are and our responsibility in the world? To me, it's no mistake that God's name doesn't show up in the book of Esther. One of only 2 books where God's name doesn't show up. If you tell me the other one in Oneg, I'll give you an extra prize at the Purim Carnival tomorrow. In this story, maybe we can find God, maybe God's hidden, maybe God is the secret force moving the characters and playing the pieces. But I think it's a story that has no moral authority in it. When there's no moral authority in the story, what will happen to the one who has no power, the good guy who has no power, when all of a sudden he has absolute power? How will he behave? What will the checks and balances be on that power? And do we like what it turns him into? If you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll read chapter 9 later, you won't sleep, and you'll talk to me about it the next day. Asks us to confront evil, asks us to evaluate our identity, and asks us about power. What's it like to be powerless? How does it feel? What are the risks of a society that can build and perpetuate systems where some are powerless to the whims of those with power? And once we have power, what is our sacred obligation and responsibility? Mordecai says to Esther, perhaps you achieved this position for just this moment. What about for us? Where are our moments when we're called, where we have to stand and say something, where we have to be brave and vulnerable to do something that will safeguard ourselves, our family, the people around us, where we see evil and have to say something about it? It's not convenient, it's frightening, it's dangerous, but we know that we have to do it because of the position that we've arrived to. It's a really, really good story. Not to mention that it's one of 2 books in the Bible named for a woman, where we have a heroine who isn't, I know there are some who've been studying a book of Midrash with me of women's stories in the Bible. She's not just valuable for her womb, as many of the female characters in our stories are. She's celebrated because of how she stands and speaks for her people. And because of that, our tradition says that when it comes time to Purim, everybody has to hear the story. And sometimes when Judaism says everybody, what it actually means is like men over the age of 18. But this is an everybody that's actually everybody. Men, women, children, the non-Jews in our community, everyone comes to hear this story of pride, of power, of obligation, to confront evil and hatred, to wonder who we are and what our responsibilities and obligations are in the world around us. Mishteh, have a party. Megillah, tell the story. Mishloach manot. Maybe some of you got boxes over the last week or so, stuffed into your mailbox or smushed between the door if you weren't home. Maybe you baked hamantashen and found some tchotchkes to drop off at a friend's house. I shouldn't say his name. I don't want to get booed. The bad guy, we'll just say his name. I don't want to get booed on Shabbos. No, Henry. The bad guy, what he says when he goes to the king, he says, there's a people who lives amongst your nation who have their own rules. They don't follow your laws. They're a nation set apart. They're different from us, and they shouldn't be here anymore. We'll leave it at that for tonight. He says that it's a nation, that we are a people who is not and cannot be a part of majority society. That we're too different and not welcome because we're different. Because we won't do the thing that he says that's in service of his own ego. Because he wants Mordechai to bow to him. Because of his ego, we're not welcome anymore. We're apart from everyone else. We are not part of the community. So what do we do on the holiday? We give gifts to each other. This guy who tried to tear us apart from each other, who tried to instill violence and terror and fear amongst the people, our response is, yeah, well, we're going to have a whole month of costumes and cookies and songs and joy, and we're going to give gifts to each other. We're going to strengthen the bonds of community while you tried to tear them apart. Mishloach manot. And the fourth one, matanot le'evyonim, gifts to the poor. Not only are we going to strengthen the ties that bind our community together, we're going to invest and reinvest in the communities around us. What are we going to do on our holiday of they tried to kill us, we won, let's eat? We're going to look at the community around us and contribute and give. Because it's not just about us, it's about all of us. It's about our responsibility not just to the Jewish people, but to the world. There's this beautiful passage from the Baal Shem Tov, the great Hasidic master. He says that the reason that we wear costumes on Purim is so we can do a better job of giving tzedakah. So the one who needs doesn't have to feel shame or embarrassment at asking. No one will know who it is. And the one who gives, it's not about, I gave tzedakah this year. It's to give because it's the right thing to do. It protects the well-being of everyone in the community. The costumes are joy, the costumes are silly, but the costumes are in service of sacred obligation to the people around us. We have to have joy, especially in the world as it is right now. It's so Jewish. In a time of fear and tragedy and sorrow, we still make sure that we make time for laughter. We have to have joy. We have to tell stories to our children and to ourselves and ask the questions and have the conversations that story demands. Where do we fit in majority society? Are we seen? Are we welcomed? Are we proud? Are we able to say who we are? What do we do about the powerless? What do we do about our own power? What do we do when we have to confront evil? And when is it our moment? Is this the moment that we were called for? We have to take care of each other and take care of the world around us because we're Jews, and that's what we do. We strengthen community and allow that communal strength to be in service of a universalistic mission. We have particularism. We have the stuff that's Jewish and internal, but that internal message serves a universal responsibility. This is a good holiday. It's not just for kids, though it's definitely for kids too. It's worthy of us coming to laugh and to do something ridiculous and put on a dumb hat and eat an extra cookie and have an extra sip of wine. It's worth it so that we can do our sacred work, to evaluate where we are and to dream together about where we go next. So as you approach this holiday, I hope that for you and for your families, for the people you love, the communities that you care about, that it's a holiday that fills you with confidence and pride in your Jewish identity, that allows you to look cruelty and evil in the face and speak with words of love and commitment to our sacred responsibilities to one another. Chag Purim Sameach. May this be a joyful and a happy holiday of Purim.